everybody, Dutch Sense here. 11:44 a.m. Central Time on Wednesday, March 9th, 2016. And guys, for longtime viewers and new viewers, I'm going to make this short and sweet. I'm having a good day and a good yesterday as well when we found the news that something that I caught flack on for multiple years has now been verified and experimented on by the U.S. military. And what I'm talking about here are the bullseye ring-shaped plasma rings that form off of high-power radio transmission, radio waves, and this is done at experiments up at HAARP, confirmed by the Air Force Research Laboratories, showing the ring formation, explaining how it forms, why it forms, and that it's not just at HAARP, it's any high-frequency pulse that's targeted. Now, high-frequency pulses occur from NEXRAD radar stations in pulse mode. Normally, radar operates in the microwave bands, so in the gigahertz, but it pulses in the megahertz bandwidth, which overlays and coincides with the same megahertz bandwidths that they've used at HAARP and other high-frequency facilities to generate these plasma rings. And this is visible. This is actually happening up in the upper ionosphere, and they describe it as an upside-down top hat shape that reaches down from the ionosphere into the upper atmosphere or lower ionosphere. And that's what we see here. Compare here of the HAARP rings from radar stations to the HAARP rings from HAARP. And these are smaller, of course, and they're less powerful. That's why we're not seeing actual visible plasma form off of this down here to the south at the radar stations. But the effect produces an actual wind rotation above the transmitter. There's actual excitement that happens. Particle exchange, electron cascade, storm formation. And we've documented this over and over again. For instance, Dover, Delaware on the East Coast. Large radar pulse comes out of the Air Force Base there. And several hours later, severe storms kick up. And the only spot to get an actual tornado warning is directly over the transmitter at the base. Just one of hundreds of examples. The U.S. military has created multiple plasma spheres in the atmosphere, observed those using radar. People said it was impossible to see this stuff on radar and that the rings we were seeing were birds and bugs. That's what they said they were. You can go read the Skeptic forums, huge forum, talking about how Dutch Sense is just seeing birds and bugs, that these are birds and bugs. Now we know it's not. The experiments were done to prove that rotation, wind rotation, forms above a transmitter. So this is already proved by MIT scientists that you can literally generate a vortex above a transmitter, and their idea is to generate tornadoes to produce power. Okay, so we can go down the list here on all the different documentation of high power transmissions, lasers stripping ions in the atmosphere to produce cloud condensation nuclei. That may sound complex. Let me just describe it like this. A high-power transmission strips particles in the air that then collect water molecules and form into clouds and precipitation, as described by Michio Kaku in this video here. I'm going to put a link down below to this post so you guys can come over and check it out. Also, they came out further and described it that they can do it with two beams, that one beam can strip the CCN, form plasma, and the other beam can pump it up and sustain it. So they generate plasma with one, hit it with the other beam, sustain it. That's what the U.S. military has done at length. That's how they sustain the plasma ball in the atmosphere. They announced that back in 2013. But now we have it, guys. Again, look at the diagram that's included with this, and look at the date that this all occurred on. They're doing this experiment here, and I've got the PDF here provided by the DTIC.mil, okay, November of 2011. Now, was there a guy online that was going through a huge catastrophe and persecution over researching HAARP rings up at HAARP and at radar stations in November of 2011? There sure was. And now they call it HAARP ring. Now, the way this all happens, there's an energy exchange where the beams interact. You can imagine also this can happen up in the ionosphere with just one transmitter, either dueling transmitter. This is Lieutenant Thomas Bearden's diagram here provided on scalar, but the scalar is just nothing more than an area where the energy exchange occurs. Like at CERN, they're doing experiments on the scalar Higgs boson, and we're talking about an area just like at CERN where they're using microwaves and klystrons. You'd have to look up CERN and understand what I'm talking about here. But that they use banks of klystrons. Klystrons are basically what powers the NEXRAD radars here in the States. Banks of them, though, put together to power that beam at CERN. The beam at CERN is nothing more than microwave. You can look it up. So when we're talking about the scalar exchange, this is something that was controversial science, but now it's proved. The plasma that forms at a distance from the transmitter is not subject to the square inverse law, that it doesn't dissipate at a distance, that an excitement occurs at a distance when certain harmonics are reached. As described in this paper, they talk about the harmonics, they talk about the level, the megahertz bandwidth that they're using here to generate it. But I can already tell you, other megahertz bandwidths have been used, not just the single megahertz, going up into the teens, even up into microwave bands. It's been done. And again, the experiments have already been done. This is not my take on it. You can just go read it. So the whole debate was whether or not this was possible, right? Everybody said, oh, it's not possible that this could happen, that radar stations could generate this. Well, now they've proved that the high-frequency pulses generate plasma at a distance from the transmitter in the shape that we're seeing here. This isn't background clutter, and it's not birds and bugs. If it was background clutter, all the radar stations would show it. There's many more radar stations in the location here, but only the locations that were inducing that plasma formation. And this is not visible to the human eye. It's reflective, though, on radar. It's now proved this is reflected on radar. So what we're seeing here, this screenshot from October 2011, was a day where the radars were in excessive operation and they were pumping too much frequency into the upper atmosphere, into the ionosphere. It then caused a plasma reflection and CCN formation, and within days you have storms. CCN, again, cloud condensation nuclei, the precursor to rain, as proved from the laser pulses that Michio Kaku was talking about. So all I've got to say about this, finally, guys, is just it's been 5 years of trying to prove the case, and I understand skepticism. Look, I had to go pull all the data because I'm trying to find out what's going on here. I don't buy the story that it's birds and bugs. So I'm going to leave one more link down below in this video. You're going to have a link to this post here that I'm talking about, and then we're going to take you all the way back to my post that goes back to 2010, basically all the different PDFs, all the different institutions that have studied this, links to everything that we've talked about over the years, how radar is used to observe these things. People said it was impossible to observe it on radar too, you remember? They said, oh, you can't use radar to observe HAARP. Yet that's how they observe the things that form above HAARP and the transmitters in general, not just HAARP. I mean, when we talk about HAARP, there's other facilities. The Europeans, I've reported on this, are building 5 new HAARP-type facilities that are 10 times bigger. 100,000 antenna elements at one facility alone, and we're talking about 5 over the course of multiple countries. All 5 facilities, as you can see on the screen here now, the diagram, they're all designed to be targeted at a certain point, just like what we're talking about here, and to superheat and produce that plasma over Northern Europe. Now, these superheated regions, of course, this begs the question, missile defense. Superheated regions of plasma in the upper atmosphere above a transmitter, far from the transmitter. That then leads us into the military aspect, and then that leads us into why I was censored, and of course, the whole information was obfuscated for 5 years. Here we are now in 2016, and we have finally the proof, the military documentation of them calling it a HAARP ring and bullseye shape. Everybody said it was impossible, that it couldn't happen. Well, now you know it is possible. So if it's possible with a high-frequency pulse from HAARP, then we're just talking about power thresholds here. Then the debate comes in, how much power does it take to produce that plasma, that ionization? Is it 750,000 watts like what we see at the NEXRAD stations? Everybody said it was impossible. Now we know it's possible. Now it's just a matter of doing those experiments with the radars next to find out the full deal on how far this goes down the list, how many other systems are producing their own rotation above the transmitter. If microwaves can induce rotation above the transmitter, as proved in the laboratory, and we have microwave transmitters all the way across the country, high power radar systems, microwave, that could be a problem. Now that we know it induces rotation, now that we know high-powered systems can also form plasma. Plasma superheated regions in the upper atmosphere. Of course, heat and cold mix, rotation forms. Add in CCN and actual moisture to that, we've got storm formation. Unintentional. Just from a radar system that would be used to observe the weather in conjunction with multiple other high-powered systems all the way across the country now. Does it have a cumulative effect? Of course it must have a cumulative effect. So the debate as to whether or not it was possible, quote unquote, is now over. So now we need to go to the next level, and I will not take any other debate on the topic. I won't accept it. I mean, before I'd be willing to listen and, counter with going to find more information. But at this point, everybody who said it was impossible, all the people who called me a conspiracy theorist for doing scientific research and providing all the links on everything that I find. This isn't Bigfoot, guys. This is actual science we're talking about here. And I'm glad I was on the cutting edge of it. I caught a lot of heck over the years. My name was ruined. They listed me as a threat 2 months prior to their experiments here. I was listed as a threat on the Department of Homeland Security website for researching this topic. 2 months later, they do the experiments. The U.S. military does the experiments right after I'm smeared over HAARP rings on the DHS website. And my viewers, not just me. They listed you guys too. If you're watching my video, they said you're a threat. Because you're researching this information. You're watching my videos. You must be a threat too. It was outrageous. 9/11, 2011. Oh man, to see your name listed on a government site for researching this topic, and now to be proved right 5 years later. HAARP rings. Literally at HAARP. How ironic, but there it is, guys. So much love, and I figure I'll show this to you and just put the link down below for everything that I'm talking about here. If you're new to the topic, I've got hours of descriptions of each PDF that we discovered over the years and tied it all together pretty much last year on the radio show and then left it hanging till now that we have actual ring terminology that they're talking about. Again, a lot of people told me, you'll never find anything where they call it a HAARP ring. Well, there it is. So much love, guys. Much love.